Secretary Janet Yellen meets Chinese Vice Premier Lu. It's the first highest-ranking contact between the two countries since Biden and Xi agreed at the G20 to look for areas of cooperation. The U.S. state of Texas proposes a bill that would ban investors in 4 countries from purchasing property. Entities from China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia are to be kept out. Meanwhile, Amazon reclaims top stop from Apple as the world's most valuable brand. A new report says that this is despite Amazon's brand value falling 15% this year to $299.3 billion. A 2016 video that Tesla used to promote its self-driving technology was staged. This is according to a testimony by a senior engineer. The video was promoted on Twitter by Elon Musk. Colin Farrell, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Michelle Pfeiffer test positive for COVID-19 following appearances at this year's Golden Globes. Just after U.S. President Joe Biden finally visited the U.S.-Mexico border, New York's Mayor Eric Adams also paid a visit to a border city where he declared that there is no room for migrants in New York. The announcement comes as over 40,000 illegal migrants have made their way to the city since last year alone. Mayor Eric Adams plans to be in Washington, D.C., to bring up the issue at the United States Conference of Mayors. Eric Adams, a Democrat, also criticized the Biden administration on the issue. Take a listen.
Our cities are being undermined, and we don't deserve this. Migrants don't deserve this. And the people who live in the cities don't deserve this. We expect more from our national leaders to address this issue in a real way.
Adams' visit to the border city of El Paso comes after he said that migrant influx into New York could cost the city as much as $2 billion, as the city is already facing a major budget shortfall. As mentioned, more than 40,000 migrants arrived or traveled to New York's 5 boroughs since last year. This has caused a housing crisis in New York and a worsening homeless crisis in the city as well. In recent months, the Republican governors of Florida and Texas have sent migrants seeking asylum in the United States to cities run by Democrats that include New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. in a bid to raise awareness on the issue. Some say the migrant issue has now become increasingly politicized as a constant tussle between the Democrats and Republicans. For more on this, we are joined by Adele Nazarian. She is a media fellow at the Gold Institute for International Strategy, and she's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Adele, lovely to have you on WION. So some say that it's a good thing that Mayor Eric Adams is traveling to the border and trying to bring national attention to a crisis that has been ongoing since the Biden administration took over. But others are saying there isn't much he can do unless the Biden administration actually steps in and does something.
Thank you so much for having me on. And you're absolutely correct. This is a FEMA issue. It is a federal issue in many regards, but it's also up to states to take responsibility and to be able to push back against pressures from their Democratic counterparts who are mostly pushing for this, and Republican. There are some, of course, in the ranks. But it is unfortunate this has been a politicized issue. I think what we're noticing here is a trend usually starts in Europe and then it makes its way over to the US. And if you take, for example, the Syrian refugee crisis, you see that Turkey took on the most number of Syrian refugees, and they were absolutely exhausted and overwhelmed with their resources. And now what's going on is that these Syrians are being forcibly returned or told to return back to their war, embattled, broken down country with no reinforcements. And so I do agree that it is a federal issue, but it is up to the federal government to also work with this at the state level to be able to share and help direct the allocation of resources and funding, and to be able to put a foot down, so to speak, figuratively, and to help solve this crisis at its roots, right? You can't put a Band-Aid over a gaping wound, so to speak. There's a much larger endemic issue going on here that has resulted in this influx of migrants who are seeking a better way of life. But there has to be some kind of a remedy to allowing for this to occur in the capacity at which it has been, and for it to become politicized in the way that it has become.
Right, exactly. And at this point, it's clear that the only beneficiaries are the cartels that are bringing these illegal migrants across the border. And it's anything but humane. What's happening at the southern border in the United States. When we say that it's being politicized, some are arguing that perhaps a few years back, there was some glimmer of hope that the Republicans and Democrats could come to the negotiating table and maybe reach an agreement on immigration. Do you think that an agreement in the United States right now and some kind of compromise is further than ever before?
That's a great question. And consensus, as you put it, is absolutely a goal. I think that's been lost over the past 2-3 administrations. But I do think that in the midst of one of the greatest political fights for both parties' futures, I have never seen this country more divided politically as it is in our current state. I don't necessarily see a consensus or agreement amongst both parties, honestly, with the upcoming 2024 presidential elections, where Republicans and Democrats are fighting more than ever before for the mantle of supremacy, so to speak. Although I will say, to your previous point, you're absolutely correct. There's been a lot of false advertising. You have these cartels, these coyotes, so to speak, who are giving false advertisements using the image of, for example, Eric Adams, and saying in ads that are misleading that the streets of New York are paved with gold, for example, and that you are going to be staying in a hotel once you arrive here. Yeah. And that's a far cry from reality. So it's really up to, I think, for the good of the nation, for the good of the people, and truly putting the American people first, for Republicans and Democrats to find a medium, so to speak, and to put their own interests for the first time in a long time secondary to what is best for the overall health of the nation and its people.
Amen. Absolutely. Adele, thank you so much for joining us on WION, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Moving on, geopolitical friction between the United States and several other countries over the last year is taking on dimension of restrictions on the purchase of property. Lawmakers in Texas have introduced a bill that bars privileges for people from Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. According to Texas Senate Bill 147, citizens, entities, and governments from China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia are prohibited to purchase a land within the state of Texas. Texas Republican Senator Louise Kolkhorst says that she introduced the bill to address growing concerns on protecting Texas land from foreign government ownership. A report from the National Association of Realtors says that between April of 2021 and March of 2022, Texas was the second most populous U.S. state for international real estate. And Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen met Chinese Vice Premier Liu He on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum. Yellen's first face-to-face meeting with Vice Premier Liu was the highest-ranking contact between the two countries since President Biden and President Xi Jinping agreed last November to look for areas of potential cooperation. Both sides stressed on the need to prevent competition turning into conflict while agreeing to work together to seek common ground. Wednesday's meeting comes amid swelling diplomatic efforts to keep high tension in check between the two countries. Trade between the U.S. and China is on track to break records. A signal of resilient links between the world's top economies amid the heated national security rhetoric in Washington and fears of, quote, decoupling. U.S. government data through November suggests that imports and exports in 2022 will add up to an all-time high when the final report comes out in February. A U.S. official confirmed on Tuesday that Secretary of State Antony Blinken will be visiting Beijing in early February. At the G20 summit in November last year, President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping had both voiced guarded hope at preventing disagreements from spiraling out of control. A new report has revealed that the U.S. has been shipping artillery shells to Ukraine forces from a massive stockpile that it owns, which it keeps in Israel. This is despite Israel's position of not sending arms to Ukraine. So has Israel quietly changed its position? Our correspondent Jody Cohen sends us the details. Have a look.
The American supplies are reportedly kept in Israel for the US military to use in regional conflicts. And at times, the US has also permitted Israel to use some of the ammunition. According to a report in the New York Times, under Israel's former Prime Minister Yair Lapid, Israel had 1,000 shells, despite the balance the country has tried hard to maintain in its relations with Ukraine and Russia. One reason is because Israel suggests it needs to cooperate with Russia on its activities in Syria to prevent Iran from getting closer to its border. Israeli defense officials are said to have advised the government that Israel should agree to the ammunition transfer because it belongs to the US. Israel has not changed its position of not supplying Ukraine with Israeli weapons, although it has sent protective military equipment and large amounts of humanitarian aid. And on Tuesday, Ukraine's ambassador to Israel urged the country to supply missile defense systems. Before becoming Prime Minister again, Benjamin Netanyahu had said that he would consider sending more support to Ukraine. However, commentators are suggesting that the recent call between the Israeli and Russian foreign ministers suggests that the new government is likely to continue down the path of trying to maintain good relations with both Ukraine and Russia. Meanwhile, US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is meeting Israeli President Herzog on Wednesday evening, and Ukraine is likely to be on the agenda. This is Jody Cohen for WION World is One.
As the war in Ukraine rages on, the threat to security in Europe assumes big dimensions. The first NATO surveillance plane arrived in Romania to strengthen the military alliance's eastern flank. It will also help to monitor Russian military activity. The aircraft landed at an airbase near Bucharest. Last week, NATO announced that it would deploy airborne warning and control system surveillance planes to Bucharest. Since Russia invaded Ukraine in February, NATO has increased its air presence in Eastern Europe and the Baltics by using fighter jets, surveillance planes, and tankers.
My team is well prepared, and we will soon conduct missions from Bucharest for a limited period of time. This makes an important contribution to NATO's enhanced vigilance activities at the eastern flank of the alliance.
The aircraft belongs to a fleet of 14 NATO surveillance aircraft, usually based in Germany. NATO and EU member Romania shares a border with Ukraine. Around 180 NATO military personnel are also set to assist the Romanian Air Force from a base near Bucharest.
Brutal Russian aggression against Ukraine, this continuous attacks on civilians and infrastructure shows that we have to be strong. Brutal Russian aggression.
Crypto exchange FTX reported that digital assets worth $415 million were stolen by hackers. In a report to creditors, FTX said it had recovered over $5 billion in crypto assets and was still significantly short of the amount it owes to international and U.S. customers. The bankrupt firm said some of the shortfall was because of hackers who stole $323 million from its international exchange and $90 million from its U.S. crypto exchange. FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried, though, challenged some aspects of the firm's report to creditors. The founder has been indicted on allegations of stealing billions of dollars through his hedge fund firm, but he pleaded not guilty to those charges, with his trial set to begin in October. He said the lawyers representing FTX had given a, quote, extremely misleading picture of the firm's finances. Bankman-Fried said that the firm was solvent and had enough money to pay off U.S. customers, which he guesses is between $181 million and $497 million. FTX, though, did not give an estimate of the amount it owes. During FTX's initial investigation into hacks, it discovered asset seizures by regulators of the Bahamas, leading to a dispute between them. But both parties have settled their differences. An FTX spokesperson on Tuesday said the Bahamas government was holding $426 million for creditors. Bahamas Prime Minister Philip Davis said the bankrupt crypto exchange had, quote, come around and accepted the Bahama regulators' asset seizure, saying that it was, quote, appropriate and perhaps has saved the day for many of the investors in FTX. Our next story is about Tesla and its self-driving cars. There is a lot of hype about them, but its faulty automation features continue to put Tesla under the glaring spotlight of safety regulators. Once again, Tesla and its CEO Elon Musk are being criticized, this time for consciously faking the self-driving feature. We give you all the details in the next report.
Take a look at this video. The Tesla car may have a person in the driver's seat, but the car is driving itself. Pay attention to its capabilities. It stops at a red light. It accelerates at a green light. Impressive, isn't it? But let us tell you, it's all fake. You heard that right. What you just saw is a 2016 video Tesla used to promote its self-driving technology. A senior engineer has now testified that everything in the video was staged. The demo was specific to a pre-mapped route. To create the video, Tesla used 3D mapping on a predetermined route from a house in Menlo Park to Tesla's then headquarters in Palo Alto. While filming the video, drivers had to intervene to take control in test runs. In an effort to show that Model X could park itself with no driver, a test car in fact crashed into a fence in Tesla's parking lot. Ashok Eluswamy, a director of autopilot software at Tesla, said in a deposition that the Model X was not driving itself with the technology Tesla had deployed. The video was intended to portray what was possible to build into the system. It wasn't actually capable of doing any of that. Customers were misled. His statement was taken as evidence in a lawsuit against Tesla. The car maker was sued for a 2018 Silicon Valley freeway crash that killed an Apple engineer. What's even worse, even when everything in the video was fabricated, Tesla CEO Elon Musk decided to promote the video by saying Tesla drives itself. Tesla has been facing lawsuits and regulatory scrutiny over its driver assistance systems for years now. Musk has fought hard to defend Tesla's autopilot from critics and regulators, but the company continues to come under fire over self-driving claims. It's time Musk became more transparent and took responsibility for lapses in the system. Maybe safety requires a bigger focus than claimed innovation.
3 years into the COVID-19 pandemic, and it seems Hollywood is still figuring out how to give each other golden statues without creating a potential super spreader event. Sounds bizarre, right? Well, it's true. A number of celebrities have tested positive for COVID-19 following appearances at the Golden Globes. Several stars, including Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Michelle Pfeiffer, announced that they had contracted the virus in the days following the awards. Stars took their specific social media accounts to break the news. Of course, there's no telling when, where, or how these Hollywood A-listers caught COVID. It's an extremely contagious virus which spreads more when people are sitting close to each other, just like they were at the Golden Globe Awards. Not to mention, Hollywood saw a similar phenomenon last year with a small outbreak after the BAFTAs. COVID-19 safety precautions like testing, vaccination, and mask requirements have been inconsistent this award season. Celebrities, too, have stopped wearing masks on the red carpet. Many believe masks definitely don't match their fashion vibe. However, some were quick to suggest that if Hollywood wants to keep the in-person and COVID-free award ceremony going on, celebrities may want to mask up. Others, however, say to each their own. Thank you so much for staying with us and watching WION Live Broadcast from New York City with me, Susan Tehrani, but don't go away. More news and headlines coming up next on WION World is One.
There are many other